So in the previous tutorial, I talked about the options we have to edit, a single tracked drum or anything else, and just edit the timing of it using hit points. What happens, let's say you want to edit something that's multi-tracked? The most obvious aspect is something recorded in a very multi-microphone situation, like a drum set or something, or any kind of stereo track. But in this case, even if we recorded, the separate drums or each drum separately, like those floor toms we talked about previously, sometimes you want to retain the feel of the performance as a whole, or as of the four performances actually as a whole, but still have generally the whole timing of it synced to metronome or quantized, without losing stuff like the flams between instruments and things like that. So Cubase does that very easy. Here I have those floor toms, and if you're going to listen to them the way they're recorded, I'm just going to solo these tracks. As you can see, they have lots of flams between them. Let me get that click off. You see that now they're in a hurry a little bit. They're pretty loose, even though they have a really good time in general. I still want to make it a little bit better. So what I have to do is I need to put all those tracks, all those 4 floor tracks, in a folder. So I'm going to select each of them using Shift and select the 4 of them, right click, and do Move Selected Tracks to New Folder. And they disappeared. They went down here to the end of the project inside a new folder, which is now called in the creative name Folder. I'm going to change it and call it Floors. And now you're going to see something interesting. There's this little button here called Group Editing. And I'm going to click it, but it's also going to trigger a scenario that's very common when you record those instruments separately. And let's see what happens. I click it, and it says the tracks in this folder are not completely in sync. The reason it says that is that because those tracks were recorded in different takes and in different places, we have different start and stop positions. So what I can do, I'm going to turn this off. I can select all of them, group them by doing Command G. You see they're all grouped over here. And let's make them larger a little bit. And using Snap, which is turned on over here, I can just cut them in the exact same place. So I can do this and remove all those beginnings, which are not needed anyway, and do the same for the endings. That's nice. Now when I turn this on, it works, and I don't get that message. So what I can do now is I can pick one of the tracks to serve as a guide track for the whole editing. Instead of cutting each of them separately, I can say, okay, well, I'm going to pick, I can go here, I can pick something like this first floor, and I can set the threshold down just on this one. I took it down, and it got all the notes. You can see over here, it got it pretty precisely. It's very good with detecting transients on a drum. That's nice. Now I can close that, and I can go back to my quantize panel from before. I do Edit, Quantize panel, and now I have over here this floor track as a priority. So now this is my only selected guide track because this is the only track that I've selected hit points to. But if I'd gone here and clicked this, and then over here clicked any of the other floor tracks, like this one, and selected hit points for that using threshold, that's now an option 2 in the quantize panel. It immediately showed up. So I can, if I close the sample editor window and I go here, I can actually set the priorities between them. As you can see, those hit points change as I change the priority. I'm just going to set one of them as a priority for now. I'm going to let the offset be 0 instead of -20. So the cut is exactly on the transient. And then I'm just going to slice it. So what happened is I just got very different events for each of those. And they're all cut just where that first floor was. So now all I can do now, especially if I want to quantize it in 8 notes, but this time I'm going to change it to 16th notes. And I can just go and click Quantize. And and that quantized all the drums with that guide track that I used before. So if I'm going to play it, it's good, but still there's a lot of cuts. So what I can do, go over here and click crossfade and turn the length down. Here's a mistake here. Now when you go down here, you see that because this was so early, this little thing, as you can see here, made some noise. So I can just go here and manually move one of these crossfades. I'm gonna get the snap off and get this crossfade here. And when I play it again, I'm not gonna hear that noise again. There you go. That's very clean. So that's a way to quantize multi-track instruments using the quantize panel, even if they're recorded separately, like in our case.